Hi, this is Jeremy Kellett, Director of Recruiting here at Oakley Trucking, and I'm your host for this podcast. This is episode 86. So on today's podcast, we have a episode that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and we call it Old School versus New School. And I got a couple of our owner-operators in here to help us with that, talk about some of the stuff that's happened a long time ago when you were trucking versus some of the stuff that's been happening recently, whether it's technology or the paper logs or using a road atlas or even the CB. So we're going to cover a few things with these guys here in just a few minutes. But first, before we get started, I want to give you an Oakley update. And the Oakley update is always sponsored by Arrow Truck Sales. Let's hear from our sponsor, Arrow Truck Sales. Go see Keith Wilson and Trey Visor at Arrow Truck Sales in Springfield, Missouri. Over the past 8 years, Arrow has built a great working relationship with Oakley Trucking. They specialize in getting new owner-operators approved for trucks and upgrading existing ones. Carrying a wide selection of all makes and models, they pride themselves with helping customers through every step of buying a used truck, including service after the sale. Listen to new Oakley owner-operator and Arrow customer Sean McMahon.
Yeah, it's my first time being an owner-operator, so it was first for me, and they made it real easy for me. I wound up getting a 2018 579 Pete with the Cummins 450 and a 13-speed. I worked hauling cars for 15 years, and I've been driving about 23 years. Yeah, I would send everybody I know to Mr. Keith over there at Arrow Truck Sales. I've had a really good experience with him, and first kind of guy.
When you go see Arrow Truck Sales in Springfield, Missouri, tell them you heard this ad on the Oakley podcast, and they will give you half off your first payment when financing through transport funding. Give Keith Wilson and Trey Visor a call at 573-216-6047. So first on the Oakley update, the couple things I want to tell you about real quick. One is the years of service decals. So we have every month, Vicki and Miss Wendy are sending a years of service decal that goes on the side of your truck. It'll be like if your anniversary is in November, then we're going to mail you a years of service decal that you can put on the side of your truck for how many ever years that you've been at Oakley. And we want you to do that. Put it on there and take a picture and send it to us, and we'll put it on, or you can put it on social media or send it to us, and we will. We just, those years of service decals goes a long ways. They don't cost hardly anything, and a lot of guys are proud to put them on there to tell how long they've been at Oakley Trucking, and we're going to do that. So be sure and do that. Also, on the pictures, while I'm talking about pictures, we do a calendar every year. I know I've told y'all about this, but we pick out 12 pictures from our owner-operators. You guys have taken them out on the road somewhere and at a facility or something. They look really good, and we pick out 12 to be on the calendar. And we make this calendar we send to customers, we send to all our owner-operators, and just thousands of them. And, of course, we've already done with this year. That one's already done. It's getting made. But send in those pictures for next year's calendar. Anytime you get to a neat place out on the road with, whether it's mountains, whether it's weather, whether it's a neat facility, anything like that, send it to us at Oakley. You can send it to Vicki Chastain. If you don't have her email, we pop it up here on the screen so you guys can email her those pictures. So, excuse me. A couple of other things real quick. I always like to recognize an owner-operator or two on this Oakley update, and just to let you know how some of these owner-operators and how good they are and how long they've been here. And two of them that I want to recognize this week is one of them is Tim Drake. And Tim has been with us 13 years this month. He's out of Gurdon, Arkansas. He pulls a pneumatic tank for us, drives a 2007 Peterbilt. He's just a great guy. I was talking to his dispatcher earlier, just has no complaints about him. He handles a lot of the stuff over at Ardmore and does a great job. Been with us a long time. Tim used to pull end dump with us, and just a good owner-operator, just an asset to Oakley Trucking, and we appreciate you being around 13 years, Tim Drake. Also, Joe Sims out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Been with us 15 years this month. He pulls a pneumatic tank also. He's got a 2020 Freightliner, and he is just, I asked the dispatch about him a while ago, how does Joe do? And they said, oh my gosh, man, he is he is on top of the game. He takes care of his business. He makes sure if he tells you he's going to be there, he's there. All his paperwork's right. He said, man, if we could clone that man, we'd like to have 50 more of him. And so, Joe Sims, your effort does not go unnoticed at Oakley Trucking. We appreciate everything you do for us here at Oakley. So congratulations to those guys on knocking down the years at Oakley Trucking. All right, let's get started on today's episode. Old school versus new school. Some of the stuff that happened years ago and some of the stuff that's happening now and how it's changed. And to do that with me, I got Brent Schneider, an Oakley owner-operator since 2019, is with us, and also Mr. Winston Guest. How you guys doing?
I'm doing all right.
Doing
great.
Mr. Winston's been with us 24 years. Where are you from, Brent? Give us a little introduction of yourself.
Well, my name is Brent Schneider, and I have about 11 years in the military, and I'm from Palm Harbor, Florida.
Family?
Both my mom and my dad live in Iowa and North Dakota, so I don't really get up there that often. I do a once a year kind of thing, but no family in Florida, so I'm by myself.
Nice. Hobbies?
Like to work on my car and play computer games when I get the time or whatever, but other than that, I don't really have a lot of hobbies.
What kind of car you got?
I have a 2002 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am WS6.
Nice.
And that's kind of my it's been my pet project for about 10 years now. So, yeah, about the length I've had the vehicle.
That's the way those projects typically go. Yep. Okay. And Florida's you call Florida your home?
Yes, sir.
A good deal. Well, good. How about you, Mr. Winston? Tell us a little bit about you real quick.
I'm 70 years old. I was raised in Phillips County, Arkansas. Born in a little place called Turkey Scratch, and that's home. It may be the most poverty place in Arkansas, but it's still home.
Right. And family?
Yeah, I got one daughter and two granddaughters and a wonderful wife. All my parents are passed away.
How long you been married?
52 years.
Wow. That's awesome. Any hobbies you do on the weekends?
Well, most time now I work on my truck, but I do have hobbies. I like drag racing, and I got a pretty good hot rod, and I still like to do it. I just don't have as much time as I need. Nobody does anymore, Yeah.
That drag racing's pretty popular, though, isn't it?
Yeah, expensive too, but
now, do you drive it?
yeah.
Really? Where's the drag strip over there? They got
Newport.
One? At Newport. Okay. All right, I got you. My father-in-law used to do a little bit of that, so he liked some of that too. So, well, tell us a little bit about some old school stuff. I'll kind of give you guys a topic, and then you give me your own version of how you think's changed. One, I'm going to start with kind of what me and Winston were talking about a while ago. I don't even think it's on our list, but driving down the interstate today. Me and you were talking about that and how bad it was with the drivers, maybe etiquette or how they drive up and down the interstate. What's your input on that, Winston?
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really horrible. It's to the point now it's dangerous for your family to be out there. And I see people in cars every day, and when I make a mistake, I'll blink my lights on my signal lights to let them know I'm sorry and try to do better, but it's dangerous.
How is it different from back 20 years ago?
Well, the interstates have gotten so crowded. Back when we was running Lebanon in '97, I mean, you could just pretty well set the cruise and go to Lebanon, Tennessee, the other side of Nashville, and now it's tight.
Yeah, can't do that anymore. No. It's the truck drivers, have they changed? I mean, how they courteous to each other? Didn't you used to have that, Winston, back in the day? I mean, you guys would help each other if you broke down or something?
Help other people, too. It's just a different American. It's not only in the trucking, it's everywhere.
Right. What's your thoughts, Brent?
Yeah, it's definitely hazardous to drive out there now. Just people merging on from off lanes. They're not giving enough room, for not necessarily oncoming traffic, but like off-going traffic. They're waiting to the last minute because they're too busy worried about what's going on their phones, what's inside their vehicle or whatever. People waving their arms in the air and all kinds of stuff going on inside that vehicle, instead of worrying about where they are at, what's going on around them. There is no more driver courtesy when it comes to a down truck on the side of the road. Every once in a while, I'll see an Oakley truck and I'll call them over the radio, which is one of our topics. We'll call on the radio, and they might not even have their radio on, or they might not need, they might not need assistance too. They might have it all under control. I know I was doing a forced regen on the side of the road, not but like 2 weeks ago, and a lady with a blown tire blew out in front of me or whatever, and while the truck's doing its regen, I kind of went over there and asked her if she needed help or whatever, helped her take the stuff out of the trunk of her vehicle or whatever and get the tire on. There was a gentleman with her or whatever, a little elderly gentleman, so he appreciated that, and getting the jack set up for him and stuff like that. But I was like, if you need help, I got impact or whatever on the truck or whatever, you can back the car up to the front of the truck or whatever, and I'll run the airline out and impact the vehicle, so you're not on the road more than what you need to be, especially crowded road, during rush hour traffic at night or whatever at 7-8 o'clock around Columbia. It gets pretty busy,
and not everybody gets over when you got one on the shoulder. Not everybody gets over, which, to your point, it being crowded, you can't a lot of times, and you blow right by them.
You can't, you're fully loaded and if you're running up there close to 70 or whatever, and car, truck gets on the side of the road or whatnot, you can't. There's not enough time to slow down to 40 mile an hour, not without doing a hard braking event or whatever. So, and then that's going to mess up everybody behind you too.
So, Brent, you mentioned CBs a while ago. Is that gone by the wayside these days?
Honestly, I think so. A lot of, like the last company I had a CB in it, but didn't have a mic in it. I'd had to provide my own microphone for the CB radio. It's, because it's a company truck or whatever. They have it there so you can hear if you're called over the radio or whatever, but other than that, you can't respond. And that's another thing. People don't want to spend it's not very much. It's like 150, maybe $200 to buy a CB radio that you can take with you truck after truck after truck. They figure it's just like a one-time cost. They're going to lose that $200 forever. But, some of these places it's a necessity for you to have a CB radio. 3M is a perfect example, and in either here in Little Rock or in Moncure, North Carolina, or on the radio, whatever. But a lot of people use the radio too for road rage.
What they used to use it for, Winston, 20, 30 years ago when you
used it for a tool to work with, really, But like he said, it's done changed a lot from there,
How's it changed?
Well, people not concerned about anybody else, like they don't got time to take the time to answer the CB, or it's just a thing of the past. It's gone.
Yeah, not everybody uses it for what they used to use it for.
No one really. I mean, what would be the percent? 10%?
Probably.
Oh, really?
Because it's a whole system you got to install on your truck too, especially if you get, you don't have a CB radio in there or whatever. You got to get the radio, you got to get the antennas, the bracket. You got to mount the bracket. People don't like how the bracket looks, or the antenna isn't long enough. Or
so I had a 1989. 19. What was it? It was a little Mazda pickup when I was in college, and I fixed that thing up with a CB. I had to have that. Had to have my antenna. Had it looking good. Actually, I had a magnetic one. I could open that back glass, a little split back glass, and I could stick it up there if I wanted to. Run the cord through there, and that's and I'd go back from Conway to Biggers, Arkansas, and I'd holler on that CB, check to see if the cops are up there. And then when I was home, my mom had a base CB set up in the house. And she could get on that thing. It had one of them stand-up handles, you squeeze it like that. And she could talk to me if I'm out running around town or, whatever. So, we had a blast with that thing. So I loved having the old CB. But back then it was fun, It seemed like people used it all the time. And for good things, it seemed like, that it was a handy tool.
Sometimes they use it for anything. It's like you get near a truck wash, especially, like they have like 3 or 4 truck washes in the area. They'll be like, hey, we got our bays open, this and that. They'll let you know where either their location is or whatever, kind of on an automatic playback thing. But then, you get closer to like some of the larger cities, Memphis, Atlanta, Nashville or whatever, and there's day cab drivers on the same channel just jibber jabbering back to forth for no reason, or because they know that 19 is like that's the channel or whatever. But they, you got 40 other channels they could go to. So it's that, or
Now, does Oakley have their own channel? Do we have a channel a lot of Oakley drivers get on?
Yeah, we used to, but I can't remember the number on it.
We used to, but not anymore.
I wasn't aware of it.
So now everybody has your cell phone number. Talk to everybody on cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, the iPhone was the greatest invention of all time, but it's also been a very bad thing too. Everybody's on the iPhone nowadays doing stuff, and it's just that's made it a lot more dangerous than what it used to be. Also,
Yeah, they're worried about that phone. What's on that phone? Well, it makes it difficult for you guys, I know, to do your job out there for sure. What about logging? I mean, I know I started in 1994 with Oakley, and running a legal logbook was pretty much not the norm here. And it's come a long ways, and I'm sure Winston has run legal his whole trucking career probably.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm sure. How was it back then, though, Winston? Give some of these people
I mean,
that are listening.
It wasn't as crowded as it was, and I think that a lot of things electronic logs have helped, but some things they've hurt because used to, you could stop and take a break and, move it around, but still yet, my wife, even right before we went on electronic logs, would stand at the back door and tell me, please don't run no hot logbook. So it's helped that because it's made us get in line and do better what it's about done,
Yeah. Yeah, because used to it was common, right?
And that's like I told somebody in the break room this morning, run the illegal logbook. It's sort of like doing cocaine. You don't never quit. You get started, and it's the way it is,
Is there, I mean, I can remember back then just dispatching guys in the 90s, and it wasn't a concern, and it was like it wasn't for them either. They could drive as much as they wanted to drive and could figure out how to hide it or make it look right, I guess, because at that point it wasn't. It became a concern with Oakley pretty quick, when we got slapped with the DOT. And then we finally hired Ron Davis as a safety director back in the 90s, and he started putting a hammer down on you, didn't he, Winston?
Yeah. I never saw Benny get really excited about the law books till, I can't remember what year it was. You remember when FedEx or UPS one had a wreck in California and it was 10 different lawsuits over it. And Benny came to me then, and he was more or less concerned about it, because, run an illegal logbook, you could be in Memphis, but you logging in Little Rock. And if you have a wreck and they bring that to court, then Oakley could be no longer existing. I think they had to do what they had to do, And me, I didn't want electronic logs worse than anybody here. But I think it's the only thing that will keep Oakley trucking in business.
Yeah. Yeah, there's too much on for you not to do it. There's too many consequences for all of us, not to do it right. And I guess, Brent, that's all you've known, electronic logs.
That's not entirely true.
Okay.
The last company I worked for, I got, we were running paper logs because it was a refrigerated company out of Wisconsin, and they did dedicated to Florida and Wisconsin and back. And he had an entire fleet of gliders, and he didn't run anything else besides that. So, and then with refrigerated companies that you go deliver, Publix and all grocery stores and stuff like that in Florida, they take 6, 7, 8 hours, and then they still expect you to go and pick up the next load or whatever. So his company is surviving probably based on paper logs. And he was really worried about the mandate, when they were like, hey, all these trucks have to go. But then when they kind of left the door open for pre-99 engines or whatever, he made sure that that's what he had in his truck so that he could work that loophole. And
so was he telling you to run illegal? I mean, that was kind of
Yeah, it was kind of at first it was like it wasn't really, nothing was really said, and then later on when he realized that I was willing to run as much as I possibly could or whatever, it then became implied, so and then later on, now I just talked to one of the drivers here not too long ago in Ocala at the truck stop there, and they were like, that's all we know.
Oh,
No,
really? They
there's no
still have it.
There's no 34-hour resets or anything of that nature. They're like, this is all he has is run.
They're playing with fire.
They are, yeah. I got a few violations just, over the 14-hour clock and stuff like that. Like, eventually you're just on autopilot and you get burned out and stuff, because you're just running like that. And since there is no real 34-hour reset, you were really running just to take a break, just to get home time. You were running all that illegal for no reason, really, just to have time off. And that's dangerous.
Very. Playing with fire there, it's going to catch up to him, Winston.
It will.
How about these trucks, that have changed over the years? What's one of the oldest trucks you ever drove, Winston?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to say probably 60s or something like that.
You remember some of the...
Yeah, I farmed for 31 years before I went to work for Oakley. And I never had trucked anything but off the farm. And this is close to farming as I could do and not farm,
Right. What were those trucks like compared to the ones
man,
today?
This stuff we got now it's unbelievable how comfortable it is. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's just the thing about these trucks will cruise at a speed where the other trucks wouldn't even run. It's a lot of difference. A lot of difference.
What do you got? What kind of truck you got?
Western Star, and it's not smooth, but it's still, it's just a lot better truck than what we had. We didn't have enough horsepower, or these things now take 80,000 pounds and, just pull any speed you want to pull it. But they're nice. If you take care of them, they'll last a long time.
The older trucks wouldn't do that?
No. I mean, the only thing you had back then, a big motor was like a 318 Detroit, and now, you got 3 times that much horsepower. It's a lot of difference.
Yeah. What kind you got, Brent?
I got a 2015 Freightliner Cascadia. It runs a DD15 engine in it. It gets I think it's rated at 505 horsepower right now. Okay. Yeah.
Fuel mileage probably changed a lot, too, over the years.
A lot better.
A lot better. What you got to, yeah. You get good fuel mileage, Brent?
I didn't when I first got the truck, and then I waited for about a year before I actually took it in to get an overhead adjustment on it and things like that, and then it really put the fuel mileage back where it was supposed to be. So on like a load that I'm pulling like 79.5, it's probably getting anywhere from 7 to 8 miles a gallon at about 68, 69 mile an hour.
That's how you make money right there.
That's good.
That is good. Yeah. Well, now the year 07, right? Western Star, good looking truck too. I know you bought that new, didn't you?
Yep.
And it's a pre-emissions truck, right? Which is understandable. You hadn't wanting to dive off into that, are you?
Well, it put a lot of my buddies out of business. In 2007, I bought that, and that was the last one you could buy before they went to regen. And the regen was really bad, even worse than it is now, when it started. And it bankrupted a lot of people that, that had so much trouble with them.
It did. We lost a lot of good owner-operators, and still today are having problems.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part. I know Brent, when he was sharing his story with his truck, just trying to stay ahead of it all the time with these things these pre-emissions that are on the trucks. That's a whole nother episode on a podcast talking about that stuff, because that can you can go down a rabbit hole in that one real quick, because that's a frustrating part of these trucks. But it's neat to know for our listeners to know how some of the old trucks were and how Winston ran back then and log books compared to what we're doing today. And I think you guys give us some good insight on that. What about what else can you think of? One of my things that when I was dispatching, and I've never driven a truck, but one of the things that I still today has changed everything, and you mentioned it a while ago, Winston, is the phone. So when I dispatched a truck, and because he stopped at a payphone or a phone in the truck stop, they had phones, and that was the only time I got to dispatch him. So it had to be right, because the next time he's going to call me is from the place that he's unloading or loaded. one or the other. So you had to, there wasn't no changing. Well, man, all of a sudden they started popping up with these. Well, before phones, you know what we had? Pagers. So we had pagers so guys could page us, and then we could call them back from the house phone. But then these cell phones started coming out. I mean, the bag phones, and then the flip phones, and now these iPhones. To me, the phones have just changed the whole game. What do y'all think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, like I said, it's a bad tool, but it's one of a great tool too. I mean, you know, it saves a lot of money in a year to Oakley and all of us. But you know, it's.
How'd you get dispatched before you had a cell phone?
Wow, I don't even know. I think I had a cell phone when I came here. It was one of the more big bag phones, you know. But it
Cost like $18 a call or something.
it's a lot different what we got here. When you live long as I have, everything's different than what it used to be.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
But it just, you know, that I remember guys not having phones, and that's how you dispatch, and that was, you know, there wasn't no changing you up, you know, in the middle of it. And now, I mean, it's a constant, good and bad, I guess, with it. What's your experience with the phones? I mean, you use them for GPS and everything, I guess, don't you, Brent?
Yeah, we pretty much use it for everything. I think there's only been one time where I've been without like cell service, where I actually have to go in and be like, hey, can I use your phone because I need to call my dispatch? Otherwise, I don't know which direction I can go, and you know. And I think that was like in the middle of Mississippi somewhere. And he was like, yeah, sure, you know, go ahead, you know, use the phone or whatever. And you know, of course, dispatch doesn't even recognize the phone number when it comes in. They're like, hello? Yeah. Yeah. So using that, I mean, using the phone for GPS kind of helps, because then you can get an actual, I can't say a current up-to-date photo of like what the facility looks like, or, you know, because it might still be a new construction or whatever, and Google Maps hasn't updated or anything like that. So it just might be a, you know, plot of trees. So, you know, that, you know, updated roads and such to get to the facility. You can kind of see if trucks are allowed to park there, you know, overnight, kind of with the reviews and that thing like that, you know. And then, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with like using the maps, you know, going from, you know, using an atlas and the blue truck stop book that would, you know, would help you navigate, you know, how many miles you had to drive from this side of the state to this side of the state and stuff like that.
Do they even sell road atlases in the truck stop anymore?
They still do. They don't sell the blue truck stop books, though. They had the breakdown that let you know there was a cat scale or a shower or all that stuff. Yeah, they don't sell that anymore, which is, I mean, you don't need it so much anymore because, you know, the GPS is, you know, you got your Rand McNally or your Garmin or whatever in the truck or whatever. It kind of has a list on that, you know, but that was kind of nice to have because it always had an updated list. Like, you know, so if a new truck stop was built, it was added into that book. And now it's not. Now you kind of don't know unless you're driving by that, you know, see the, hey, grand opening.
So do you have an Atlas in your truck right now?
I still do. Yeah, I still have a 2015 Atlas.
What about you,
I got
man?
one that's in 3 or 4 different plate pieces, but it's still there.
You ever use it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. This iPhones now, though, is pretty close.
They get you pretty close where you're going.
Pretty close.
Yeah. The only issue with using Google Maps, though, you know, you get put down the wrong road, and you end up going down a residential road, and then you end up in Central Park, sitting in Central Park, and there's a cop saying, "Hey, you can't be here," right. You know, trying to get you to turn around to go back the other direction or whatever. You know, sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not so nice. You know, because you go down that road, and you're like, well, my place I need to deliver is down a road that says no trucks or weight limit. You know, Texas has a lot of those weight limit signs that says, you know, don't go over, exceed weight limit like 52,865 pounds.
See how complicated we've made this to where, I mean, used to it was CB, find your way in and out. If you didn't, stop and ask somebody, and they'll get you in and out of there. I mean, that was simple, you know. Now it's we've just complicated it, it seems like.
But the technology has helped trucking a lot. You know, I was probably against most things as bad as anyone was. When you're young and you see the good years and you don't want to lose them. But we had to do what we had to do, because if we hadn't, Oakley Trucking would have still been over in that white building and not over here, you know, doing great. It's all got a place.
Yeah, you got to change. I mean,
You got to.
it's a frustrating thing, but
Yep.
we've made it. I mean, you're a testament to it, Winston. I mean, you've
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I've gotten mad about things, and they, like Benny says, they'll always take care of themselves, and they do. I mean, it's because we have done great, and this has been a wonderful place to work, a wonderful place.
you know, the old school versus new school type conversation is pretty unique for me to listen to, because I get to hear some stuff the way it used to be, you know, a long time ago, and then you compare it to the way it is now, and you try to weigh out those options. I just think it's a good conversation, and our listeners want to hear some of this kind of stuff, and I do too. I like hearing it, and I really, now that I'm saying it, I feel kind of old. Because I'm like, man, I remember not having a cell phone. I'm like, dang, how old am I? You know, I'm 50 years old. I don't know what happened, Brent. I mean, it just happens. So in that time frame. But anyway, what else, guys? What else has changed, you know, over the years that was I mean, we talked about logbooks. We talked about how trucks have changed, how driving up and down the interstate has really changed. You know, what else has changed in the trucking industry that you can think of, maybe for the good or the bad?
I think capacity of the roadways. So I had Jackson riding on my truck with me or whatever, and one of the things I talked to him about, he's like, wow, these roads are pretty terrible. And I think we were driving through Shreveport at that time, and they are really horrible. And I was like, you know, these roads have been here since, you know, I don't know, so probably the 70s or whatever, and they don't repave them or whatever, and your whole truck's like falling apart as you're going down these roads. And then I touched base with him. I was like, roads around like Atlanta, you know, like they've expanded the roads, so they've added another lane, or they take a lane away, or this or that or whatever. And I mentioned, you know, having the dispatchers ride around with us on the truck as more of an update training, you know, not to pick on Brian or anything like that, but I was like, I don't know when the last time Brian was probably actually on a truck, you know, with, you know, a semi-driver or whatever, you know. I assume when he first came on board, that was probably practice. And I was like, you know, come out here, and then he could see like driving around Atlanta or whatever is now, you know, instead of what roads used to be 2 lanes are now 4 lanes or 6 lanes, or some are smaller, you know. They've just crush the lanes down. You know, it used to be 3 lanes all the way around. Now it just drops down to 1 lane, and traffic is just strangled. I know when I first started driving truck, you know, that whole airplane fiasco crashing on the interstate around Atlanta or whatever shut the ring down, the bypass all the way around, and traffic just couldn't get in or out of Atlanta, and they wouldn't let the trucks go through the city limits, you know. And so I just think that, like, capacity-wise or whatever, they're not, you know, living in Florida personally, I don't like delivering in Florida or picking up in Florida just for that premise alone. Traffic alone is horrible around Tampa, around Orlando, and even worse so around when you get down towards, like, Miami and stuff like that. I'll take the loads, you know, because those are my loads, but, you know, my personal opinion, they're horrible. And, you know, just
the roads and traffic.
Yeah, the roads and the traffic are just terrible. They're all, you know, they're under construction to widen them and make them easier for traffic, but then they're all reduced down to 1 lane. So you're like, for the next 6 months or a year or 2 years, I know running up 85 through South Carolina and into North Carolina, that's all under construction. Been under construction for as long as I've been here at Oakley. And it doesn't get better. It gets worse. And, you know, they drop the speed limit now, so then it's like you got, you know, 900 trucks on the road during regular drive time or whatever more, and it just makes your day that much more stressful. And but most of my friends that I do know run at night because they do not want to drive during the day. And I have a lot of friends that, you know, only want to drive during the day, and that's something that they got to deal with.
What about you, Winston?
Yeah, I'm like him. What you got to do now, though, is you make time when you can, and you get in slow lane when you can't, because you can't change it. You're not going to gain anything by forcing it. You know, you can get out there and force and try to pass all you want to, but you ain't going nowhere.
24 years ago when you started Oakley.
Oh, you didn't have to slow down. I mean, no. I mean, going to Lebanon, Tennessee, no.
Not near the traffic.
No. I don't know how much. It's a lot. What they did when they got through the Interstate 40 in the 60s, they should have went ahead and started building a third lane then. That's how far we've gotten behind. You know, and then we fought that war over there and invested all that money that should have been spent over here. It's got us in a bind.
40 definitely needs to be expanded. Another lane on each side.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Even if you have to pull off on the road, like you have to do a regen on the side of the road. There's like that shoulder is like,
yeah,
it's
tight.
pretty slim. Yeah. So there's that, and then some of the, I'm not saying like, I think this is just in general. Some of the facilities, you know, they, especially during pandemic shutdown, like that would have been the perfect time for you to update your system, whether it's to go from like a fully automatic one or, you know, to get away from, you know, having to use a forklift and bins, to better conveyor systems put into place, I don't know, with more rollers or whatever, you know, to support more weight. But a lot of the facilities that we do go to, you know, whether they're farming facilities or ag facilities, I should say, and industrial complexes that we go to, like a lot of the equipment is pretty dated and really isn't designed to handle like the flow of, like, you know, like out here you go out here to drop your soybeans and you can crank both doors open and the whole entire trailer is unloaded in like 30 seconds. You know, it's not that way at some places. You know, some of the glass places it takes an hour and a half to unload, and I'm sure it's that way with, you know, pneumatics and wherever you go. Like they had a perfect window, you know, where they weren't shipping out so much product and they weren't getting so much in. The system could have been like, okay, we can be down for like a day or two or whatever to do this, you know, to update this system or whatever. And then when you come back, you know, there's a mad rush to get product through the door, you know, because all these people need product, and then there's breaking belts.
Yeah.
Silos are
ancient
going down.
equipment.
Yeah.
Not upgrading it. That's probably some of the same stuff they've had forever. A lot of people just don't change, you know. That's part of it, I guess. When we gonna get Benny on this thing, Winston?
That's gonna be a hard job.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. I keep telling him.
Maybe he wants somebody paying for it.
He probably will. We may have to come up with something. Oh, mercy. Well, I sure appreciate you guys coming up here and hanging out with me a few minutes and doing this episode. It means a lot. I know y'all got stuff to do and time is crunched, and old Brent's just got out of the Geo-Tab class. I know he's wore out. Winston got
Teresa's over there waiting on me, and
Teresa's
she's going to be mad at me.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell her call you.
Tell her it's my fault. But I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me today and sharing information with our listeners out there. It means a lot. You know, this is the Oakley Podcast, Trucking Business Family. It comes out once a week, every Wednesday. We put it out to everybody, and we appreciate y'all listening. Please spread the word, share it with everybody you know, and tune in every Wednesday, and we'll have a new one for you. Appreciate you listening. Thanks, guys.